One moment, one photograph, one click that tore apart the perfect facade of a brilliant CEO and his wife's closest friend. Have you ever wondered if the most heinous secrets are hidden right within the most trusted embrace? This is the untold story of a cold betrayal, and the moment one woman turned the tables right in the eye of the storm. Join us as we unveil the truth. Don't miss the most shocking stories on Love and Scandal Daily. The grand penthouse apartment perched high above the bustling city often felt like a meticulously crafted stage. Here, Anya and Leo lived a life that, to any observer, was the epitome of success and marital bliss. Leo, a charismatic and sharp-witted CEO, commanded boardrooms with the same ease he exuded. At elegant charity galas, his presence a magnetic force. Anya, his wife, was equally formidable, not merely a decorative partner, but a brilliant strategist in her own right, her work in digital innovation quietly revolutionizing their shared business empire. Their home, filled with designer furniture and cutting-edge art, reflected their refined taste and their seemingly effortless prosperity. Every morning, they shared artisanal coffee on the sun-drenched balcony, discussing market trends and future plans, their conversations flowing with an intimacy born of shared ambition and what appeared to be profound affection. Evenings often found them hosting sophisticated dinner parties, their laughter echoing through the spacious rooms, a symphony of contentment. Amidst this carefully curated existence, Clara, Anya's closest friend since their university days, was a frequent and welcome presence. Clara possessed an easy charm and a quick wit that perfectly complemented Anya's more reserved nature, and she had seamlessly woven herself into the fabric of Anya and Leo's lives. She was their confidant, their travel companion, and often the third member of their impromptu movie nights curled on their plush sofa with a glass of wine. Anya trusted Clara implicitly, sharing her deepest thoughts and vulnerabilities with a friend who felt more like a sister. Leo, too, seemed to genuinely enjoy Clara's company, their banter light-hearted and their camaraderie undeniable. Anya often watched them interact, a quiet warmth spreading through her, grateful for the harmonious trio they formed. Yet despite the polished surface, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift had begun to occur, like a faint tremor, deep beneath solid ground. It started with minor adjustments in routine small deviations that Anya, with her keen observational skills, began to register. Leo's business trips seemed to extend by an extra day, without clear explanation, or he would arrive home late, his usual enthusiastic recounting of his day, replaced by vague summaries and a weariness that seemed to settle deeper than mere exhaustion. He attributed it to demanding negotiations, the relentless pace of their industry, and Anya, ever supportive, accepted these explanations at face value, though a tiny, unarticulated question mark began to hover at the edges of her consciousness. Simultaneously, Clara's presence sometimes felt different. There were fleeting moments, a prolonged glance from Clara towards Leo when she thought Anya wasn't looking, or a quick, almost imperceptible adjustment of her posture when Leo entered the room. Anya, ever dismissing, attributed these to her own overactive imagination, a byproduct of her demanding work or simply the easy comfort of old friends. The air, though still outwardly serene, carried a faint, almost imperceptible hum of something dissonant, a single note out of tune in their otherwise perfect melody. It was too subtle to be alarming, too fleeting to be concrete, yet it was undeniably there, a quiet prelude to the storm that lay hidden beneath their idyllic facade. The subtle changes that Anya had initially dismissed as figments of her imagination or products of stress slowly began to coalesce into something more concrete, a persistent whisper that her rational mind could no longer entirely silence. Leo's late nights, once sporadic, became noticeably more frequent. He'd arrive home sometimes well past midnight with the faint scent of an unfamiliar cologne clinging to his expensive suits, or the telltale crinkle of a shirt that had been worn for too long. His explanations, initially plausible tales of marathon board meetings or last-minute client dinners, grew increasingly vague, punctuated by hurried phone calls he would take in hushed tones, often retreating to his study or the balcony. Anya, with her sharp memory, started to notice inconsistencies in his stories, small, chronological errors or sudden shifts in details about who he was with or where he had been. The warmth that usually enveloped their evening conversations began to cool, replaced by a growing distance that felt both physical and emotional. Concurrently, Clara's behavior, too, underwent a noticeable, if equally subtle, shift. Her visits, once spontaneous and joyful, started to feel calculated. There were moments when Anya would catch Clara's eyes lingering on Leo for a fraction of a second too long, a look that held an intensity Anya couldn't quite decipher, a spark that was certainly not just platonic admiration. Clara, usually so open and vivacious, became slightly more guarded around Anya. Her laughter sometimes sounding a little forced, her conversations occasionally veering away from certain topics with an almost defensive swiftness. Once Anya overheard Clara on the phone, her voice lowered, mentioning Leo, in a context that didn't quite fit a casual chat between friends. When Anya innocently inquired, Clara stammered, quickly changed the subject, and attributed the call to a work matter. She was helping Leo with a claim Anya found mildly plausible, but still unsettling. Anya tried to reason with herself to beat back the growing unease. She told herself that successful men like Leo were always in high demand, their schedules unpredictable. She reminded herself that Clara was her best friend, a person she had shared countless memories with, someone utterly incapable of such a profound betrayal. The very idea felt grotesque, a violation of the sacred bond they shared. Yet the nagging feeling persisted, a tiny, persistent ache behind her ribs. She found herself scrutinizing their interactions, observing their body language with a new, unwelcome vigilance. A fleeting touch between Leo and Clara that seemed a little too familiar, a shared glance that held a secret understanding, a quiet joke that excluded Anya entirely. Each instance, no matter how small, was filed away in her mind, chipping away at the foundation of her trust. Sleep became elusive, her nights spent staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, dissecting gestures, searching for logical explanations that never quite materialized. The pristine world she had built with Leo, a world she believed to be founded on unwavering loyalty and love, was beginning to show faint spiderweb cracks, and the air around her, once so clear, now felt thick with an unspoken suspicion that she desperately wished was merely a figment of her troubled imagination. The tiny insidious doubts that had been gnawing at Anya's peace of mind suddenly erupted into a terrifying, undeniable truth. It was a Tuesday evening, a day Leo was supposedly at a late-night strategy session across town. Anya had decided to work from home, clearing her desk in the study, when she noticed a small, unfamiliar item tucked beneath a stack of old magazines Leo rarely touched. It was a single pristine white button, the kind used on a man's dress shirt, but definitely not from any of Leo's expensive custom-made shirts. His buttons were always subtly branded distinct. This one was plain, almost generic. A flicker of unease turned into a cold dread as she picked it up, her fingers tracing its smooth surface. As she held the button, a wave of dizziness washed over her. It was a visceral physical sensation, as if the ground beneath her had shifted. Her heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against her ribs, each beat a painful throb. Dismissing it was no longer an option. The button, so innocuous on its own, became a concrete piece of evidence too specific to ignore, too out of place to be accidental. Her mind, usually so sharp and analytical, felt suddenly clouded, yet simultaneously hyper-aware. Every memory, every fleeting glance, every hushed phone call she had dismissed or rationalized, now replayed in her mind with a horrifying clarity. The pieces of the puzzle, once disparate and confusing, began to click into place, forming a picture that was monstrous in its betrayal. The initial shock was paralyzing. Anya sat slumped in the desk chair, the button still clutched in her hand, the expensive furnishings of her home suddenly feeling hollow and mocking. Disbelief warred with a crushing certainty. Her perfect life, her perfect marriage, the man she had loved and trusted implicitly. It was all a meticulously constructed lie. The pain was not just emotional. It was a physical agony, a sharp, twisting knife in her gut. She felt a profound sense of nausea, a desperate urge to vomit the truth out of her system. The air in the room, once familiar and comforting, now felt suffocating, heavy with deceit. Sleep became an impossible luxury. Anya spent the night staring at the ceiling, every shadow in the room seeming to morph into grotesque shapes of betrayal. Tears streamed down her face, silent and endless, until her eyes were raw and swollen. She couldn't eat. The mere thought of food made her stomach churn. The world outside her window, usually vibrant with the city's pulse, now seemed distant, muffled, irrelevant. She was trapped in a suffocating bubble of her own heartbreak. The trust she had placed in Leo and Clara felt like a precious vase that had been dropped and shattered into a million irreparable pieces. The laughter they had shared, the intimate moments, the future they had planned. All of it was tainted, poisoned by this insidious truth. The betrayal was not just an act. It was a complete demolition of her reality, leaving her adrift in a sea of despair and profound, desolate loneliness. The initial wave of paralyzing pain and disbelief slowly, agonizingly began to recede, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. Anya was a woman accustomed to crisis as CEO who navigated complex business challenges with an almost surgical precision. That same analytical mind, honed by years of strategic thinking, now asserted itself over the raw, bleeding wound of her heart. She realized that succumbing to despair would only leave her vulnerable a victim. And Anya, by her very nature, was not a victim. Her first act was to regain control of herself. She forced herself to breathe deeply and evenly, a practice she used before major negotiations. The tears stopped, not because the pain was gone, but because a new, more potent emotion had taken root: resolve. She needed answers not just for herself, but for the fundamental redefinition of her life. Confronting Leo in a fit of rage would be unproductive, giving him the upper hand, allowing him to deny or manipulate. She needed proof, undeniable and irrefutable, to dismantle his deceit brick by painful brick. Anya began her meticulous process. She started with subtle monitoring, a chilling transformation from loving wife to silent investigator. Her phone, once a tool for connection, became a discreet surveillance device. She activated call logging noting times and durations, cross-referencing them with Leo's reported whereabouts. Emails, usually glanced at quickly, were now scrutinized for any peculiar patterns or unusual senders. She observed his interactions with Clara when they were together, searching for any telltale signs, a hand resting too long on a shoulder, a shared, secret smile that vanished when Anya looked their way, a hushed conversation that immediately ceased upon her approach. Every seemingly innocent gesture, every casual remark, was mentally catalogued and analyzed. She became a master of maintaining a facade. Outwardly, Anya continued to play the role of the devoted wife and the gracious friend. Her conversations with Leo were normal, perhaps even more outwardly affectionate, a cruel irony that twisted in her gut but served her purpose. She laughed at Clara's jokes, discussed trivial matters, all while her mind meticulously pieced together the fragments of their deception. It was an excruciating performance, each smile a strain, each casual touch a torment. Yet she persevered, driven by a quiet, burning determination. She understood that her strength lay not in immediate confrontation, but in calculated patience. The betrayal had been carefully constructed, and it would be carefully, undeniably exposed. Every piece of evidence she gathered, no matter how small, a vague alibi, a suspicious text message, an unexplained absence, was a thread leading her deeper into the labyrinth of their lies, strengthening her resolve for the inevitable reckoning. The quiet, observant woman had become a formidable strategist, preparing for a battle that only she knew was coming. The weight of her secret investigation, the constant performance of normalcy, and the gnawing pain of betrayal became almost unbearable. Anya, despite her formidable strength, recognized the danger of isolating herself. She needed an anchor, a sounding board, someone she could trust implicitly without revealing the full, devastating scope of her plan. Her thoughts turned to Elena, her former university professor and current mentor in the tech industry. Elena was not just brilliant. She possessed a rare blend of wisdom, discretion, and an almost intuitive understanding of human nature. More importantly, Elena existed outside the immediate social circle that included Leo and Clara, making her a safe, unbiased confidant. Anya arranged a discreet meeting under the guise of discussing a new business venture. Over a quiet dinner in a secluded restaurant, Anya began to speak carefully at first, framing her suspicions as hypothetical scenarios testing the waters. Elena listened intently, her gaze calm and discerning. As Anya spoke, the dam holding back her carefully contained emotions began to crack. She didn't reveal the depth of her investigative efforts, but she confessed the crushing weight of her doubts, the inconsistencies she observed, and the chilling sensation of a truth she was afraid to name. Elena, sensing the profound distress beneath Anya's composed exterior, gently guided the conversation, asking insightful questions that allowed Anya to articulate the fragments of her anguish without feeling judged. Elena's presence was a lifeline, a silent acknowledgement that Anya was not alone in her torment. As Anya slowly, hesitantly laid bare the emotional landscape of her current reality, her mind involuntarily drifted back to her past with Clara. It wasn't just a friendship. It was a profound bond forged in the crucible of youthful dreams and shared vulnerabilities. Clara had been the first person Anya confided in after a devastating family loss in her early 20s, a time when Anya felt utterly adrift. Clara had stayed by her side through heartbreaks, career setbacks, and moments of self-doubt. They had dreamed of their futures together, envisioned growing old side by side sharing grandchildren's stories. Anya remembered Clara's unwavering support when she launched her first challenging startup, Clara's genuine joy at Anya's successes, and the countless nights spent laughing, crying, and sharing their deepest fears and aspirations. The memories, once precious and comforting, now felt like shards of glass in her heart, each one twisting with the added agony of Clara's complicity in Leo's betrayal. The depth of Clara's involvement made the betrayal twice as potent, twice as agonizing. It wasn't just a husband's infidelity. It was the ultimate treachery from a sister of the heart. The realization that Clara had been sitting in Anya's home sharing meals, offering comforting words, all while secretly dismantling Anya's life, was a poison that seeped into her very soul. This deep personal betrayal fueled Anya's quiet rage, transforming her desire for justice into something far more resolute. It was no longer just about exposing Leo. It was about confronting the unimaginable duplicity of the person she had considered her family. The conversation with Elena, though discreet, solidified Anya's resolve, transforming her pain into a cold, unwavering determination. She knew now that the path forward, however painful, had to be taken, not just for revenge, but for the reclamation of her shattered dignity and the truth she was owed. While Anya meticulously assembled the pieces of their deception, Leo and Clara continued to weave their elaborate web, blissfully unaware they were being watched. Their secret world, once thrillingly clandestine, had slowly morphed into a fragile, addictive bubble. For Leo, Clara offered an intoxicating escape from the pressures of his public life and the subtle, unspoken expectations of his marriage to Anya. With Clara, he could shed the CEO persona, indulge in impulsive desires, and feel a kind of raw, uncomplicated excitement that had long faded from his structured existence. He rationalized his actions with practiced ease. Anya was too busy, too focused on her career, too perfect. He told himself he deserved this simple pleasure, this uncomplicated affection, conveniently ignoring the profound betrayal underlying his choices. Clara, on her part, was ensnared by a complex mix of emotions. There was the undeniable thrill of forbidden love, the allure of a powerful man who seemingly chose her over his formidable wife. But beneath the fleeting excitement lay a deeper, more insidious current. A silent, unacknowledged envy of Anya's seemingly flawless life had always simmered within her. Anya had success, respect, and a husband who outwardly at least adored her. Clara, despite her own accomplishments, often felt overshadowed perpetually, the supporting character in Anya's brilliant narrative. Leo's attention, his whispered compliments, and the shared secret created an illusion of being chosen, of finally standing in the spotlight. She justified her actions by convincing herself that Anya was too strong, too self-sufficient, and wouldn't be truly hurt by this minor indiscretion. The guilt, when it surfaced, was quickly pushed down, buried under layers of self-deception and the intoxicating rush of their stolen moments. Their clandestine meetings became a ritual. Lunch dates extended into stolen afternoons veiled as work discussions. Late-night texts filled with coded endearments replaced genuine sleep. They perfected the art of the alibi, cross-referencing their stories, anticipating potential questions, and rehearsing their nonchalance. They reveled in the danger, the shared secret strengthening their bond, an illicit intimacy forged in lies. There were whispered phone calls from empty office hallways, quick embraces in deserted parking garages, and weekend getaways disguised as solo business trips for Leo or girls' weekends, for Clara carefully orchestrated to avoid suspicion. Each act of deception, each successfully pulled off lie, emboldened them, making them feel invincible. Yet cracks were beginning to show in their carefully constructed charade, subtle signs of their increasing recklessness. A forgotten hotel keycard, in Leo's jacket pocket, quickly dismissed by him as a relic from a legitimate business trip. A faint, sweet perfume clinging to Clara's scarf, distinct from her usual fragrance. A fleeting argument overheard by a colleague quickly smoothed over with forced laughter. They were growing complacent, their confidence in their secrecy blinding them to the meticulous eye that was already watching their every move. The web they had woven so carefully was not only trapping Anya, but slowly, imperceptibly tightening around themselves, preparing for the dramatic unraveling that lay just ahead. With each piece of damning evidence, Anya's anger solidified into a chilling resolve. The initial urge for a furious, cathartic confrontation had faded, replaced by a strategic coldness. She realized that a private explosion, however satisfying in the moment, would only allow Leo and Clara to control the narrative, to twist facts, and to minimize their profound betrayal. Anya wanted not just exposure, but inescapable public accountability. She wanted their carefully constructed lives to crumble as irrevocably as hers had. The idea of a public revelation began to crystallize during one of her sleepless nights. It wouldn't be a whispered rumor or a leaked photograph. It needed to be dramatic, undeniable, and delivered in a setting where their deceit would be magnified by public scrutiny. The upcoming annual press conference for the conglomerate, a high-profile event Leo spearheaded, immediately sprang to mind. It was the perfect stage crowded with media industry peers and the very stakeholders whose trust Leo so carefully cultivated. The sheer audacity of such an act appealed to her, a direct challenge to their hubris. Her internal conflict was intense, a battle between her deeply ingrained sense of privacy and the burning need for justice. Was she truly capable of such a public act? Would it be seen as vindictive or as a powerful reclaiming of her dignity? The thought of the spectacle, the media frenzy, made her stomach churn. Yet the image of Leo and Clara continuing their charade, living their double lives while Anya silently suffered, was a far more unbearable prospect. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about tearing down the edifice of lies and demonstrating that truth, however painful, would always find its way to light. It was about showing them and the world the true cost of their deceit. Anya began to meticulously outline her strategy. She envisioned the flow of the press conference, the exact moment to interject, the precise words to use, and the irrefutable evidence she would present. She considered every possible reaction: Leo's shock, Clara's panic, the media's ravenous curiosity. She anticipated their denials, their attempts to deflect, and she prepared counter-arguments for each. Her legal background, though not her primary focus in recent years, resurfaced, guiding her in understanding the implications and protecting herself from potential fallout. Every element, from the timing of her appearance to the format of her presentation, was carefully plotted. The transformation was complete. The heartbroken wife had shed her skin, revealing the ruthless strategist beneath. The pain remained a dull ache in her chest, but it was now channeled into a singular, unwavering purpose. The press conference was no longer just a corporate event. It was to be the stage for a spectacular unraveling, a public reckoning for Leo and Clara. Anya felt a strange mix of terror and exhilarating power. She knew the path she was choosing was fraught with emotional peril, but the alternative, silence and continued suffering, was no longer an option. The master plan was in motion, and there was no turning back. With the press conference firmly established as the chosen battleground, Anya's preparations intensified, shifting from mere investigation to strategic orchestration. Her days became a blur of corporate meetings and covert operations. She needed to ensure Leo and Clara's unavoidable presence at the event, a task that required subtle manipulation and a keen understanding of their routines and obligations. She suggested Clara be given a prominent role in preparing the visual presentations, a role that would necessitate her presence on stage near Leo. For Leo, Anya subtly highlighted the importance of his personal charisma in sealing a crucial deal to be announced at the conference, an incentive he would never decline. Her home, once a sanctuary, transformed into a covert command center. Late into the night, Anya hunched over her laptop, not for work, but for justice. She meticulously organized the digital breadcrumbs she had collected, screenshots of suspicious messages, call logs with specific timestamps, and even geolocation data from discreetly installed tracking software on a spare phone she had gifted Leo for emergencies. She cross-referenced these with Leo's public schedule and Clara's social media posts, weaving an undeniable tapestry of their deceit. Each piece of evidence was corroborated, redundant, and irrefutable. She anticipated every possible denial, every flimsy excuse they might conjure, preparing a counter-argument for each. If Leo claimed a late night at the office, she had the corresponding call log with Clara at a different, more intimate location. If Clara tried to feign ignorance, Anya had the texts detailing their clandestine meetings. Anya also considered the legal ramifications. She consulted with a discreet, highly reputable attorney, presenting her case in a hypothetical manner to understand the boundaries and consequences of a public exposé. She ensured that her actions, while dramatic, would remain within the bounds of legality, protecting herself from potential lawsuits for defamation or privacy invasion. This was not about wild accusations, it was about presenting documented facts. The most challenging aspect was maintaining her composure. She continued to greet Leo with a practiced smile, to discuss household matters and business strategies, as if her world weren't crumbling around her. She even shared what appeared to be lighthearted banter with Clara on the phone, discussing arrangements for the press conference, the sheer hypocrisy, a bitter taste in her mouth. Each interaction was a performance, draining her emotionally, but fortifying her resolve. The tension in the air, imperceptible to Leo and Clara, was palpable to Anya. Every passing hour brought her closer to the moment of truth. The meticulousness of her preparations, the cold precision of her planning, underscored the depth of her pain and the unwavering determination that would soon shatter their carefully constructed lies. The stage was set, the actors were in place, and Anya, the silent orchestrator, was ready for her final devastating act. The morning of the press conference dawned with an almost cruel brightness, the sun streaming through the penthouse windows, as if oblivious to the storm brewing within. For Anya, every ticking second was a drumbeat counting down to the moment her carefully constructed reality would shatter for Leo and Clara, just as theirs had for her. She moved through her morning rituals with an almost robotic precision, the bitter coffee, the perfectly chosen power suit, the final check of her presentation notes. Outwardly, she was the picture of a confident, composed executive preparing for a major corporate event. Inwardly, her nerves were a tangled mess, a frantic hum beneath her calm exterior. Leo, by contrast, seemed exceptionally buoyant. He chatted animatedly over breakfast, discussing the upcoming announcements, the projected stock surge, and the buzz already surrounding the event. He was in his element, the charismatic CEO, radiating confidence and anticipation. He even complimented Anya's choice of attire, completely unaware of the true purpose behind her meticulously assembled ensemble. His easy laughter, his confident pronouncements about their shared future, felt like a deliberate provocation, twisting the knife deeper into Anya's heart. He was so utterly, obliviously happy. Clara arrived at the corporate headquarters shortly after Anya and Leo. She was bustling, efficient, her usual vivacious energy amplified by the excitement of the event. She embraced Anya warmly, a fleeting touch of her hand on Anya's arm, and exchanged a quick, knowing glance with Leo across the crowded reception area. This subtle interaction, invisible to others, was a stark confirmation for Anya, a chilling tableau of their complicity playing out right before her eyes. Clara's presence was essential to Anya's plan, her proximity a critical element in the carefully choreographed reveal. The conference hall buzzed with an electric energy. Reporters jostled for prime positions, cameras flashed, and industry titans mingled, anticipating the significant announcements. Leo, flanked by his executive team, moved through the crowd with the effortless grace of a man in control, shaking hands, exchanging pleasantries, embodying the very image of success and integrity. Clara was already at the podium overseeing the final technical checks for the elaborate multimedia presentation, her back to the audience, a seemingly diligent and loyal colleague. The air crackled with expectation, heavy with the weight of impending news. No one, absolutely no one, in that vast, expectant room suspected that beneath the polished veneer of corporate triumph, a deeply personal and devastating truth was about to be unleashed, orchestrated by the woman who stood quietly on the sidelines, observing every single detail. The stage was set, the unwitting actors were in place, and Anya felt a cold resolve settle over her, ready for the curtain to rise. The press conference began, a symphony of corporate jargon and optimistic projections. Leo, standing confidently at the podium, delivered his opening remarks with practiced ease, his voice resonating with authority. He spoke of innovation growth and the company's unwavering commitment to its values. Words that now tasted like ash in Anya's mouth. Clara, positioned slightly behind him, efficiently managed the accompanying visual aids, her movements fluid and professional. To the untrained eye, they were a picture of corporate synergy, a formidable team. Anya, seated in the front row, maintained her impassive expression, a quiet observer amidst the bustling media. After a few minutes, Leo gestured towards the screen for the next slide intended to detail the company's financial performance. But as Clara clicked the remote, the image that flashed onto the massive projection screen was not a series of graphs or figures. Instead, it was a high-resolution photograph of Leo and Clara locked in a passionate embrace, taken not in an office, but in a dimly lit, undeniably intimate setting. A collective gasp rippled through the audience, followed by a stunned silence. Flashbulbs, which had momentarily paused, erupted in a furious, blinding storm. Leo, mid-sentence, froze. His eyes, wide with disbelief, flickered from the screen to Clara, then to Anya. Clara, whose fingers still hovered over the remote, stared at the image, her face draining of all color, a silent scream trapped in her throat. The carefully constructed corporate facade crumbled, instantly replaced by raw public humiliation. Anya rose from her seat, her movements slow and deliberate, drawing every eye in the room. Her voice clear and steady, despite the tremor deep within her, cut through the sudden chaos. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her gaze fixed on Leo and Clara. "What you see before you is not a company projection, but a stark illustration of the true values at play within this organization and within my personal life." As murmurs erupted, Anya gestured to the screen where the incriminating photo remained. "This is Leo Vance, CEO of this esteemed company, and Clara Davies, our head of public relations and my closest friend." With each word, a new image flashed onto the screen, meticulously timed, a screenshot of a text exchange filled with illicit endearments, a booking confirmation for a hotel room outside of business trip locations, a GPS log showing Leo's car parked outside Clara's apartment late at night. The evidence was irrefutable, each piece a hammer blow to their carefully constructed lies. Anya didn't raise her voice, but her calm, factual delivery lent an undeniable power to her accusations. "For months," she continued, her voice resonating with controlled power, "these two individuals have conducted a secret affair, undermining not just my marriage, but the very principles of trust and integrity this company purports to uphold." The hall descended into utter pandemonium. Reporters surged forward, shouting questions. Leo stood transfixed, a statue of shock and horror, his career, his reputation, his entire life unraveling before a global audience. Clara, pale and trembling, stumbled back from the podium, her carefully cultivated image shattered into a million pieces. Anya remained standing, a solitary figure amidst the chaos, her gaze unwavering, the quiet architect of their spectacular downfall. The script had been flipped irrevocably. The immediate aftermath of Anya's revelation was a maelstrom of chaos and incredulity. The once orderly press conference dissolved into a cacophony of shouting reporters, the relentless click of camera shutters, and the frantic whispers of bewildered attendees. The images of Leo and Clara frozen in their illicit embrace lingered on the enormous screen, a damning backdrop to the unfolding drama. Leo, initially paralyzed by shock, finally sprang into action, though his movements were clumsy, desperate. He lunged towards the podium, attempting to snatch the remote from where Clara had dropped it, his face contorted in a mask of disbelief and rage. "This is a fabrication, a malicious lie," he roared, his voice hoarse, completely abandoning his polished CEO demeanor. "Anya, what is the meaning of this madness?" But his words were drowned out by the rising tide of questions from the media. "Mr. Vance, is this true? Ms. Davies, do you have a statement? What are the implications for the company's integrity?" Clara, meanwhile, stood frozen, her eyes wide with terror, unable to speak, her public relations training utterly failing her in the face of such raw personal exposure. Her carefully crafted image of professional competence had shattered, leaving only a shell of a woman visibly crumbling under the intense glare of 100 lenses. Anya remained remarkably composed amidst the pandemonium. She did not engage with Leo's frantic denials. Instead, she turned to face the media, her posture straight, her gaze unwavering. "The evidence speaks for itself," she stated, her voice calm and clear, cutting through the noise. "I have more should anyone require further corroboration." She held up a slender USB drive, a small, unassuming object that seemed to contain the weight of their entire world. This gesture sent another ripple of shock through the room. The news spread like wildfire. Within minutes, the story exploded across social media platforms and news networks. CEO scandal, betrayal at the podium, and Anya Vance began trending globally. Screenshots of the incriminating photos and videos of the live meltdown circulated with astonishing speed. Public reaction was swift and overwhelmingly in Anya's favor. There was a collective gasp of disbelief at the audacity of the affair, a mix of outrage at Leo and Clara's deceit, and an undeniable fascination with Anya's cool, calculated revenge. She was hailed as a symbol of strength, a woman who refused to be a silent victim. For Leo, the professional fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Phones rang incessantly with calls from board members, investors, and legal teams. His reputation, built over decades, evaporated in mere minutes. The company's stock plummeted. Clara, too, faced professional ruin. Her career in public relations, based entirely on trust and image, was irrecoverably destroyed. Her personal life, intricately linked to Anya's, also lay in shambles. As the press conference hall slowly emptied, leaving behind only the ghosts of shattered careers and broken trust, Leo and Clara remained two figures utterly devastated by the public's judgment and the cold, unyielding precision of Anya's meticulously executed truth. In the immediate, suffocating silence that followed the media frenzy, Anya returned to the penthouse. She found Leo already there, pacing like a caged animal, his face a grotesque mask of fury and humiliation. Clara was huddled on a sofa, a small, pathetic figure, sobbing uncontrollably into her hands. The elegant apartment, once a symbol of their perfect life, now felt like a battlefield saturated with the toxic aftermath of exposed lies. What in God's name was that, Anya?" Leo roared, his voice cracking with disbelief and rage. "Are you insane? You've destroyed everything! Our company, my career, us!" He gestured wildly towards the silent television screen, where news channels were already replaying snippets of the disastrous press conference, dissecting every moment of their public downfall. Anya met his furious gaze with a cold, unwavering calm. "You destroyed us, Leo," she stated, her voice devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to his histrionics. "You with your lies, you with your betrayal, and you—" She turned her eyes to Clara, who flinched. "My friend who conspired with him," Clara finally lifted her tear-streaked face. "Anya, please. I can explain." She choked out, her voice barely a whisper. It wasn't what you think." A harsh, humorless laugh escaped Anya's lips. "Wasn't what I think. I just showed the world exactly what it was. What could possibly be misinterpreted about a hotel booking, clandestine text messages, and a photograph of you two in an embrace that clearly isn't professional?" Her words were precise, cutting each one, landing with the weight of undeniable truth. Leo lunged forward, his face inches from hers. "You set us up! You planned this! How could you be so cruel?" "Cruel." Anya echoed, her voice finally beginning to tremble with the suppressed pain that now found an outlet. "Cruel was lying to me every day. Cruel was sharing our bed, our home, our life, while secretly building another with my best friend. Cruel was letting me trust you, Clara, after years of unwavering loyalty." Her voice rose, raw emotion finally breaking through her stoic facade. "Do you have any idea what it felt like to see the two people I loved and trusted most in the world systematically dismantling my life from the inside?" The accusations hung heavy in the air, undeniable. Leo recoiled, his fury momentarily eclipsed by a flicker of shame. Clara's sobs intensified, her body shaking with what appeared to be genuine remorse, though Anya felt too numb to truly discern it. The elegant living room, witness to so many superficial displays of happiness, now bore witness to the agonizing public tearing apart of a marriage and a friendship. There was no more pretense, no more hiding. Only the brutal exposed truth and the agonizing confrontation of three lives irrevocably broken by deceit. The air was thick with unspoken recriminations, the weight of shattered trust, and the profound, desolate realization that their intertwined world had come crashing down in a spectacular, unrecoverable ruin. In the brutal aftermath of the confrontation, as the initial shock and rage began to ebb, the silence in the penthouse was thick with the weight of shattered histories. While Leo and Clara wrestled with their immediate ruin, Anya's mind drifted to the past, seeking not just understanding, but the origins of this profound betrayal. She saw Leo not just as the CEO, but as the ambitious young man she'd met years ago, driven by a need for validation, a desire to constantly prove himself. His charm, once so captivating, now seemed a veneer for a deeper insecurity, a man perpetually chasing external gratification. Perhaps it was the relentless pressure of his position, the constant need for adoration that had led him down this path, seeking an ego boost in forbidden places. This wasn't an excuse, but a bitter realization of the complexities that had festered beneath their outwardly perfect union. Her thoughts then turned to Clara, and the pain intensified. Their bond had been forged in the crucible of shared experiences, starting from their university days. Anya remembered Clara's quiet struggles with self-esteem, often overshadowed by her more outwardly confident peers. Clara had always sought external approval, a yearning for recognition that Anya, in her own self-sufficiency, had perhaps never fully grasped. Anya recalled moments when Clara had expressed subtle envy, masked as admiration for Anya's effortless success and Leo's devotion. This wasn't an excuse either, but a haunting echo of a vulnerability that had been exploited and twisted into malice. Clara's past resentments, buried deep beneath layers of friendship, had seemingly found an outlet in Leo, offering her a twisted sense of victory, a chance to take what she perceived Anya had in abundance. But the past also revealed Anya's own resilience, a strength that had been tested and forged long before this betrayal. Anya had always been a survivor. She remembered the early years of building her own career, facing skepticism and setbacks with an unwavering determination. She had learned to rely on her intellect and her inner fortitude, rarely showing vulnerability to others, a trait that had perhaps made her seem less approachable, less needy than Clara. This stoicism, which had served her well in business, had perhaps also made her blind to the insidious rot within her personal life. Yet it was this very resilience that now allowed her to stand, not crumble. Her past had prepared her for this moment, not to prevent the pain, but to endure it and emerge. The echoes of their intertwined pasts resonated loudly in the now desolate apartment. Leo's ambition, Clara's yearning for recognition, and Anya's quiet strength all played roles in the tragic unraveling. It was a complex tapestry of human flaws and desires, now laid bare and raw. The initial clarity of pure right and wrong had blurred into a painful understanding of the convoluted paths that led people to profound betrayal. Anya knew that this deeper understanding didn't lessen the pain, but it did shift her perspective, allowing her to see beyond just the immediate act of infidelity to the deeper, more tragic motivations that had led to the destruction of all their lives. In the weeks that followed the devastating press conference, the world outside Anya's penthouse continued to buzz with the fallout of the scandal, while inside a different kind of quiet devastation unfolded. For Leo and Clara, the consequences were immediate, brutal, and inescapable. Leo was forced to resign from his position as CEO, his name now irrevocably tainted. The company, facing a severe public relations crisis and plummeting stock prices, went into damage control, effectively erasing his legacy. His once vast network of influential contacts rapidly dwindled, replaced by curt rejections and the cold silence of former allies. He became a pariah in the very circles he once commanded, his public image shattered beyond repair. Clara fared no better. Her career in public relations built on trust and image imploded overnight. She was immediately terminated from her role, and the industry, a small and unforgiving world, blacklisted her. Her social life, once vibrant and intertwined, with Anya's vanished completely. Friends distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. Both Leo and Clara found themselves adrift in a sea of public condemnation and personal isolation, forced to confront the wreckage of their choices. Their individual reactions to their new reality diverged. Leo, initially consumed by rage and denial, slowly descended into a bitter resentment. He lashed out at Anya, blaming her for his downfall, refusing to acknowledge the part his own actions had played. He tried to reclaim some semblance of control, but his attempts were futile. His once sharp mind, clouded by self-pity, and a desperate yearning for his lost power. His journey seemed to be one of escalating despair and a refusal to truly face his transgressions. Clara, however, seemed to experience a different kind of awakening. The public humiliation coupled with the profound loss of her friendship with Anya broke through her layers of self-deception. There were days of inconsolable grief, not just for her lost career, but for the profound betrayal she had inflicted upon someone she truly loved. She began to grapple with the depth of her envy, the misguided choices, and the immense pain she had caused. For Clara, the path ahead was a grueling one of genuine remorse, a slow, arduous climb towards understanding, and perhaps a desperate hope for eventual forgiveness, not from Anya, but from herself. Anya, meanwhile, embarked on her own quieter journey of healing. The initial adrenaline of the exposé had faded, leaving behind a profound emptiness. She started therapy, a space where she could finally process the layers of grief, anger, and disillusionment. She began to redefine her identity separate from Leo and the life they had shared. This was a challenging period of introspection, of reclaiming her self-worth and purpose. The question of forgiveness lingered, a complex and heavy thought. She knew that forgiving them wasn't about excusing their actions, but about freeing herself from the shackles of bitterness. It was a long, arduous path demanding courage and a deep understanding that true healing meant releasing the profound hold their betrayal had on her spirit, allowing her to rebuild her life piece by painful piece on a foundation of truth and self-respect. Months turned into a year, and the dust from the scandal slowly began to settle, though its echoes would forever resonate. For Anya, the period of intense self-reflection and healing began to bear fruit. She had moved out of the penthouse, selling it as a symbolic severing of ties with her old life. Her career, initially impacted by the sensational news, saw a surprising resurgence. Her public display of strength and resilience had resonated deeply, and her innovative mind, now unburdened by domestic deceit, flourished. She launched a new venture focusing on ethical AI solutions, driven by a renewed sense of purpose and integrity. Her face, once etched with pain, now carried a quiet serenity, the mark of a woman who had navigated profound adversity and emerged stronger. She understood that forgiveness for her was not about reconciliation with Leo or Clara, but about liberating her own spirit from the toxic chains of resentment. She carried the lessons, but not the bitterness. The fate of Leo and Clara, however, unfolded with different hues of consequence. Leo, isolated and stripped of his power, found no easy path to redemption. He retreated from public life, his attempts to rebuild his career largely unsuccessful. The arrogance that had once fueled his ambition now turned inward, manifesting as a deep, corrosive anger and self-pity. He never truly confronted the depth of his actions, preferring to cast himself as the victim of Anya's public humiliation. His future remained shrouded in the lingering shadow of his past, a stark reminder that some betrayals carry an unpayable price. Clara, on the other hand, embarked on a more arduous, yet perhaps more hopeful journey. The initial shock gave way to profound remorse. She sought therapy, confronting the deep-seated insecurities and envy that had led her to such a destructive path. She wrote countless unsent letters to Anya, filled with agonizing apologies and desperate explanations, knowing they might never be read, but needing to articulate her regret. She began volunteering at a local charity, seeking to rebuild her life, not through grand gestures, but through quiet acts of service, attempting to atone for the pain she had caused. While a return to her former life was impossible, Clara, unlike Leo, sought genuine transformation, hoping to find a measure of peace through humility and self-awareness. Anya occasionally saw glimpses of their post-scandal lives in the media. A grainy photo of Leo looking gaunt and bitter, a fleeting mention of Clara's quiet volunteer work. She felt no triumph, only a detached acknowledgement of the consequences. Her focus was firmly on her new beginning, on the future she was meticulously building for herself, one brick of integrity and purpose at a time. The story of the CEO's double life was a scar, a permanent reminder of betrayal, but it no longer defined her. Anya Vance had not just flipped the script. She had rewritten her entire narrative, proving that even from the ashes of deception, an unyielding spirit could rise, forge its own path, and ultimately find its own quiet, profound victory. This story, at its core, delves into the devastating ripple effect of betrayal and the profound strength found in reclaiming one's dignity. It explores the seductive nature of deception and the inevitable, often public unraveling of lies. Through Anya's journey, we witness not just heartbreak, but the remarkable power of resilience, the quiet courage it takes to confront profound hurt, and the strategic intelligence required to navigate such personal destruction. The narrative also subtly examines the complexities of human motivation, the ambition, envy, and insecurity that can drive individuals to destructive choices. Ultimately, it's a powerful testament to the idea that while forgiveness is a personal journey, justice in its own way can also be a profound act of self-preservation. It teaches us that true strength isn't just in avoiding pain, but in facing it head-on and rebuilding a life rooted in authenticity and self-respect, rather than allowing the shadows of the past to define the future. What parts of Anya's journey resonated most with you? And what do you think this story reveals about the true nature of trust?